But they did make one judgment on Robert Mugabe, saying they will refuse to shake his hand in public, depriving him of a propaganda coup. But that was not enough to persuade the government.
Granted for the parade march past in slow and peak time.
The last day of campaigning, and President Mugabe's been working the crowd just outside Harare. The banners tell the story. He's fighting a man who isn't even contesting the election.
What we have here rejected is the continuation of neocolonialism.
But somehow, disputes with past British leaders don't seem to irk him like the present one.
So we sat down 1983 in New Delhi, and we had a man-to-man talk. She was a man-to-man talk. Thatcher was a man-woman, and we agreed. Said no, if they are tried, fair trial, fine. And we shook hands. That's it.
The preoccupations of one man defining a country. Mr. President, all this talk of colonialism and Tony Blair, isn't it time for a new message?
No, Tony Blair, why is he concerned about Zimbabwe? It's a serious matter here. No interference with our sovereignty. It's not permissible at international law. Why does he continue to have this obsession with Zimbabwe? Who is he? What is he to us?
He never mentions you anymore, sir, but you mention him.
What margin of... Well, if he ceases not only mention, but even working clandestinely and surreptitiously within the European Union in order to get action taken against us, if he ceases doing that, well and good, we'll recognize that.
As the President sweeps away from the last rally, the message he leaves the people with is history. Ian Smith, Lancaster House, British colonialism. That's what he talks about. You might think that these are the obsessions of an old man, but he says that's what young Zimbabweans should be thinking about when they go to vote tomorrow. It's a message repeated at rallies across the country. At 81, he's tireless, denouncing the opposition MDC as traitors and sellouts to the white man, stooges and puppets of that white man.
British colonialism, yakafakari. We fought it, we defeated it.
They're thanking President Mugabe for bringing computers to their school. He's also brought his version of patriotic history, now taught in schools and colleges across Zimbabwe. Some call it Mugabeism, a vision of the past with Mugabe and his party ZANU-PF as heroes, winning the war against white rule in 1980 and now seizing the land from white farmers.
There was oppression by British settlers, and now the same British would want to preach democracy to us. Nonsense. We taught them democracy, that there is need for democracy, and we brought democracy to Zimbabwe. One man, one woman, one vote in 1980.
The people listen. He tells them there's no money for fertilizer, so they must go back to using cow dung. He went barefoot as a child, he says, but today's children complain if they have no shoes. You wouldn't think that going backwards would be a vote winner, but it seems to work with some.
We love our president because he has respect for black people. He doesn't want us to remain slaves. We want to get our inheritance because this is our place and we should be the masters.
Heroes Acre, designed by the North Koreans to glorify Zimbabwe's armed struggle and its leader. The monument to the unknown soldier looking over the graves of dead comrades. At Heroes Acre, President Mugabe is portrayed as the victor in the war for liberation, and he's still campaigning on that in today's elections, a quarter of a century on. ZANU-PF does mention bread and butter issues like food or healthcare, but essentially for them this is ideological. It's the next phase in the liberation struggle. Now, the struggle for people's minds. We pursued the man who honed that message for Mugabe. But Jonathan Moyo, his former chief ideologue, has lost out in a power struggle inside ZANU-PF and is contesting the elections as an independent. Now he says ZANU-PF has shortchanged the people.
They've gotten a lot of ideological talk about sovereignty, about democracy and all these things. But that has obviously not translated to the sort of everyday life things.
Many would say that's a bit rich from him. But as he campaigns in his home constituency of Sholocho, he's telling people that Mugabe's time has gone. The dispute inside ZANU-PF was about who would succeed the president when he supposedly retires in 2008.
Clearly no sane person expects him to run again after these 36 months. And if he does run again, no sane person expects him to win. And if this sort of thing continues, no sane person expects him to have a successor running on a ZANU-PF ticket to win.
Since the mid-90s, 34 people have been stripped of honours, including Robert Mugabe, who, having been made a Knight Commander of the Order of Bath, had the title annulled by the Queen for human rights violations.
Yeah, it's a nice mountain.
Oh, yeah.
Is the international community doing enough?
I think the question would be, can the international community do more? And I think they can. I look at the Zimbabwe situation and I don't think it's too unlike the situation in Iraq.
It was his last rally, a show of strength. President Mugabe's held power for 22 years, and every institution in this country is geared to perpetuating his rule. The man who would defeat him today travelled in more modest style to greet a few hundred people on a street corner in Harare. Thousands were bussed to the Bindura Stadium for Mr. Mugabe. They were promised 55 cows would be slaughtered, a feast, but not until after the speeches. First came the warm-up act, President Mugabe's wife, Grace, ridiculing the opposition MDC. Behind the humour, there's menace. On the last day of campaigning, one of the most threatening statements the president's made.
And so we will have the movement now, called the movement of dead if they have the ability after being buried to come to life in their spiritual forms, we will deal with those as well.
The contrast couldn't be greater. Morgan Tsvangirai can't even hold a meeting with diplomats in a Harare hotel without the police breaking it up. But here, all the resources of the state have been deployed to make sure that President Mugabe gets his message across. The opposition leader was allowed to address a few supporters today, but he's had constant problems. The police deny permission for meetings or suddenly make them change location. But now Mr. Tsvangirai is worried about changes in the voting procedure.
To make sure that your name, you check your name on the presidential voters roll, which is the constituent voters roll.
The rules over who is and isn't entitled to vote have also changed.
The whole intention is to confuse you.
New requirements for getting ID cards have disenfranchised thousands of young people, natural MDC supporters.
How can you change the goalpost to suit your own objective?
There's so